We feel so powerless as to what's going on right now with the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And it's a difficult place to be. And sometimes the best art comes out of situations like this. Mallarmé said, poetry is the language for a state of crisis. So here we are in a crisis, and I pray that good things will come from this. And my prayer is that this will end soon and end now in the best way possible. Poems for Peace, ZoomMuse Poems for Peace is a project of the Subud International Cultural Association. Subud is a worldwide spiritual organization that came out of Indonesia and came to the West in 1957. And there's a thriving group here in Seattle. I'm a local helper, though inactive. I also serve as the chair of SICA USA, so the USA branch of the Subud International Cultural Association. Poems for Peace was a project that was started by Latifa Taormina, who was instrumental in creating SICA in the very first place. And it began in Austin, Texas in 2012, just about 10 years ago, when the Peace One Day initiative inspired folks there to celebrate the UN's International Day of Peace, an event that annually challenges us to consider what it means to be human and how to live together as one human family. And their notion was that poetry had a unique capacity to respond to that challenge. And so that has happened for many years in Austin, Texas. It continues. The ZoomMuse project was started by Emmanuel Williams, who we will hear from during this reading. And it was an effort to build community while we were all in the lockdown, which we hope is ending very soon, and that the worst of this pandemic is very much in the rearview mirror, and we can return to, as the Stroke said, the new abnormal. So with that said, the ZoomMuse Poems for Peace, Poems for Ukraine today. We are disabling the chat so we can focus on the poems themselves. And also, we're going to ask for a minute of silence after each person reads, so that we may take in what they just said and have, I think, more reverence in what's going on here. So I'll be your master of ceremonies, and I'll introduce all the poets. And after all the scheduled poets have read, please let us know if there's something you'd like to contribute. We're asking for a 5-minute time limit, and I think those are all the ground rules. I'm grateful to be here, and I'm going to offer my poem, which is called Making Peace, after Levertov. The epigraph is from Leonid Nevzlin. Everything Putin touches dies. We rush now to tweet, debate no-fly zones, attack leaders for not being strong enough. But the Ukrainian Holocaust unfolds on our screens half a world away. The poets must give us imagination of peace to oust the intense, familiar imagination of disaster, Levertov reported. So we turn our kids from Minecraft, Grand Theft Auto, and the puddles of cortisol they secrete, then wonder about peace. Forget the US-American devastations in Afghanistan, Iraq, Vietnam, Central America, on indigenous cultures, the war against the request to simply admit Black Lives Matter and find someone to blame for high gas prices. Peace, like a poem, is not there ahead of itself, Denise knew. We need to water it, tie up the slender stem, and keep the image of its lively flower chiseled upon our minds. Less drama, more Dharma, the bumper sticker said. And here is your drama, America. Watch the maternity hospital get bombed. Families huddle in bomb shelters once called basements. Watch the ambush of Russian tanks. Think that's one for our side, and think nothing of the conscript immolated within. Yet the question remains, what are you going to do, America? There is an energy field more intense than war, as all artists know. If it's not divinity, it's her sister. Where are you going to find her, America? Say it with me. Ahimsa, ahimsa, ahimsa. Let the cultivation of non-harm commence. Our next reader is from Pequa, Pennsylvania. She's a relatively new Subud member and a very active poet and haiku writer. Please welcome Ingrid Bruck.
It's my pleasure to be here. I have two short poems. I wanted to say thank you to Paul for hosting these. Your poem really moved me. Ahimsa, I hold it. I'm in Paul's class. Life is a rehearsal for the poem, and that's how I know Adelia and through Subud. And I'm just grateful to be here with you. Letting loose. Wind lets loose a fury, lashes up heavy cloud froth, so thick the sun can't pry through. Chimes belt on eardrums, jangles dingle and twang, clangs press in on all sides. By afternoon, a slit in the sky opens. Stratus puffs race east, cumulus mountains wallow west. Trees roar their discontent. The wind blows ceaseless. Branches snap and crash in a clash of hot and cold fronts. Russia invades the Ukraine. Shooting winds scour the globe. That was written the day that this war started, and I wrote one today, and I'll end with that. Peace for the Ukraine. In a shelter in Kyiv and Kherson, Subud brothers and sisters in shelters hold Latian around the clock. Their prayers for peace ripple into the universe. Peace prayers flow. The life force streams alongside sniper bullets that spill blood in the street. 3 women killed on the way to a refugee camp. May the grace of a violinist playing music in a shelter outlast the bombing of a nuclear electric plant in Hodar. May the comfort of 10 different songbirds welcoming spring together persist long after the shelling of a maternity hospital, bombed apartments, the grief. May peace prayers shake open Putin and his soldiers, as well as the blossoms. Drifts of snowdrops, aconites, and daffodils bringing sunshine to thick collie shade. Around the world, we cry for a mother and a baby who die of dehydration in a shelter. We pray for peace with you, people of the Ukraine, in this desperate springtime.
Thank you, Ingrid. That was beautiful. Our next poet is from the United Kingdom. Please welcome Pam Galloway.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul. I just want to say thank you so much for the opportunity to join you all in this witness through poetry of the plight of the people of Ukraine. Just to say a little about myself, I have relocated to the north of England in the last 3 years, but I lived for many, many years in BC, in Vancouver. And so it's lovely to be reconnected with you this way. I have not written anything specific and new, but I have 2 poems that perhaps carry some relevance for this time. The first poem I offer is to acknowledge how blessed I feel to be here, safe and doing all the boring everyday stuff, occasionally little bursts of guilt that I'm still going about my normal life when there is so much tragedy unfolding. I want this state to be for all the people of Ukraine as soon as possible. And the poem is called The Grace of the Morning's Chores. This morning, a prayer of contentment that I am here when rain begins. Sudden pummel of the ground gives up its music, its reduplicated rhythms, pinpointed beats drum in my head. I am here, dry and folding laundry. Take a blouse, shoulders together, smooth the collar flat. I am here. Dash out, move the garden chairs, already small pools at their centres, strewn with leaves and cottonwood down. A small act of rescue, an offering to the gods of domesticity. Look, I am here. Pull the sheets from another dirty bed, I am here. Listen on the phone, reassure, counsel, though in another life, I might, on a morning like this, walk through woods and raindrops. The rain would detonate in small bursts as it came faster, freely soak the earth, all that's green, and me besides. And this second poem, I actually wrote at the time of the Iraq War. Sadly, its sentiments still ring true. It has two parts. It's called Women's Work. 1. Little girls at play. They've mapped themselves a house under the trees, now flick cedar branches and smooth the dusty earth. Mother is at the table. She's laid out pine cone cups arranged in neat settings. Soon she will gather in her daughters who will come back to her hearth, sip tea, chat, and then wash the dishes. This is not the way I imagine my daughter in the world. I want to see her open the kitchen door and run, slam it behind her. No look back to check if dinner's done, the laundry's dry, if everyone's home. 2. Sip peace. This is the world. Homes abandoned, kitchens empty, one pot left unstirred after the families fled. Invasions, missiles, smartly search out targets, the ones that go astray, the ones that don't. Women, children, the men too old for soldiering, dragged toward a place where little girls, bellies fed, might lay their heads. My daughter plays house, dreams goodness, as I dream of a time when women will tidy every room clean of weapons, lay out honeyed cups for angry men who will gather at the hearths of their homes, join the women to sip peace, talk an end to war, and let the children play.
Thank you, Pam. Beautiful reminder of the toxic masculinity underneath all wars, really. As Sappho reminded us a couple of thousands of years ago, it's a boys' game. Unfortunately, they take human beings along with it. Our next reader, I understand, is going to be via videotape. So Andrew will give us Daphne Alexopoulou from Australia.
This poem was written recently, on the 27th of February. And it's actually started from an event in the metro in the Ukraine where I saw the photograph of a mother holding her baby and smiling like this is the most amazing, wonderful event in the world, hopeful, no thought of where this is happening. And it's connected me because my daughters each had a baby within COVID, and these are COVID babies, and it still feels like it's hopeful and wonderful. And this is, you just get on with it despite everything that's happening. So at that same time, we were flooding here, and we were flooding really close to our homes. This is a prosperous city with beautiful facilities. The river flooded, the cultural center, the gallery lost stuff, the big state library, everything was in the mud with, you know. So for us, it was just this constant rain, because it was strong rain, but not really, really strong. You know, it was on the mid spectrum, but it was just constant. It would stop for 20 minutes, but the rest of the time, all night, all day, you had this noise and this quiet, because we, even in suburbia, we have all these wildlife noises. So, and I was talking to my friends in Greece, of course, and they was told that nobody's sleeping. So the poem is called Nessun Dorma, and here it is. The rain pours and pours, 5 solid days and counting. A relentless rustle of sinister white noise. It blocks sounds and thoughts. I hear the rush on the street as water gushes past our house and down the hill. Somebody else's problem now. Treacherous waters gather where we met for coffee in parallel lifetimes. It's okay, I tell myself, stay grateful. Do you know what you will take with you with 5 minutes left to run? My thoughts have to be fished out of the white noise. My intentions sink to the bottom. They are out of my reach. The grass sparkles in drunken bliss, but the frog chorus is silent. No bird song, no bats calling, no possums scurrying on the roof. All other noise is obsolete. All plans have to change or wait. There's a stench from things we prefer hidden. Mud, knee-deep, shoulder-deep, destroys the coming harvest. The pavements are covered in discarded possessions. Far away, another devastated landscape is forming. Do you know what you will take with you with 5 minutes left to run? When the tanks started circling the borders, what did we think would happen outside our tiny screen, where devastation and crumbling lives mingle with recipes and too many irrelevant people continuing their blinkered lives? Fashion shows next to orphan children, million-dollar homes and humble abodes destroyed in a second. Brother killing brother. The manufactured escalation of hatred and fear has become the truth. For 2 years, we have been watching the miasma spread. Now the smell of death is real. Do you know what you will take with you with 5 minutes left to run? My friends in Europe are not sleeping. The noise evil makes goes much further than the bombs. The floods have moved further south for now. I hold my baby granddaughter close. In the gathering darkness, we still need to hold hope close, praying that she won't have to live days like these again. I yearn to hold my grandson in London, 7 years old, and wiser than grown men who should know better. I yearn to hold the new baby I have not met yet. His name means God's gift. He smiles when he hears my voice. I can touch his face on the screen. On my screen from a metro station in Kiev, a mother's face beams with joy as she holds her newborn baby girl, a celebration of love a raised fist against pragmatism. I pray that she won't have to live through more days like these.
Beautiful poem, Daphne. I'm glad you were a part of this, even if you were taped and are sleeping at 5 a.m. Where you are in Australia or whatever time it is. I'm grateful you were here. Our next reader is in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Please welcome Dora Odarenko.
Thank you so much for gathering me into this wonderful group. These poems, I have poems about peace. These poems are really not explicitly about peace, but I think they make it very clear why peace is the only thing that we can strive for. They're based on my memories of my dad, who was born in the Ukraine and had to flee from that other Soviet invasion in 1919 when he was just in his teens. So perhaps they will add something to our thinking for this day. So the narrator of the first two poems is my dad. Poltava, Ukraine, 1919. Thursday was the day my father said, "It's time, go. You'll leave the horse with us and Anna. The way will be too harsh for her. A fiancé is now a luxury. Your boots and back and will are strong. Here's a ruble, a compass for your soul." A lifetime later, only coin and words remain. The coin in those next months too small and precious to trade for tea or bread. I cannot share the other words that night or mother's touch that tried to reach deep beneath my sleeve. Why speak of pools of light or samovar that gathered us as one, or the cross that held a blessing for all who passed beneath our door? The furrows of longing cast shadows as I walked into that night, the verticals of barns my last sure guide. Claimed by mud and wind and emptiness, I found my way to Prague, and there began to flesh out sunken cheeks and choices, never turning back. And then again, my second poem, The Voice of My Father. To my homeland, Poltava, Ukraine. It's where I dreamed in fields proclaiming gold before they're reaped. It's winter walks to school, hot potatoes warming hands. It's where in church we kneeled on stone, hoping Christ would let us rise. It's where I rode to join the whites with my dad's gift, his blessing on our fight. I carried silence with me into Prague, New York, DC. Blitz, war rooms, migraines, price small enough for country, garden, time for playing Telemon. 4th of July tested that peace. Despite my daughter's innocence, explosions, blinding lights, and cost were far too close to what I'd left. No awe when flames burst in air. Bombs reap flattened fields, cold, worthless, gleaming, gone, and farm and school. Death notwithstanding, I rise in anguish fresh. We rise together lest the Russians once again succeed. And then this is my voice. Letter to my dad. We think the dead at peace and trauma laid to rest. May this be so wherever you may be. When I was growing, you seemed grounded, tough in pruning me to be like you. as when tears were forbidden if I fell and split my knee, or when I sobbed for White Kitty lost, or could not find those theorems for geometry, or when you fired men at work and brought us home your throbbing head, or when your raised fist stopped the priest who offered Russian prayers on your last night. Did your reservoirs of silence ever seep or brim? Did new ponds flow, inviting you to swim, though any drops that clung were quickly wiped when mom played Chopin, when you heard your mother tongue, or when you let your dachshund walk you after work, a solitary figure with your cigarette, admitting in relief, I heard you more than once. Oh well, oh well.
Thank you, Dora, for your beautiful contribution. Perspective. Okay, from Vancouver Island, please welcome Anne Graham Walker.
Hello, everybody. It's such an honor to be here. I can barely speak after some of the poems I've just heard, and yeah, it's just amazing. So, well, I have two poems that are just very new. I just keep changing them. It's a very new thing for me to write about war. I'm a journalist and a poet, and I find writing about war kind of is very confusing, because when I'm a poet, I draw from memory, and when I'm a journalist, I draw from facts. And now as a poet, I'm drawing from facts. It's very confusing, but I'm compelled to draw from the facts with this war. The first one is called Notes from Ukraine, First Days. In flames, the invaded sky wails, rains blood. Old people find shelter in unheated subways, surrender their frailty to hard concrete floors, trapped in their childhood, a familiar memory of genocide, somebody close. How quietly they line up their woolly blankets, set down their Ziploc bags of heart meds as they wait for the sirens, for the shelling to end. Outside, the billowing mushroom cloud, resplendent orange, flares full the black night, swallows up the oxygen. By dawn, a resolute young woman is out on the street alone, bundled in scarves and mitts. She's sweeping the broken glass in what's left of her square, her body unprotected. Behind her, a bombed out block of apartments, eerily quiet, black, smoldering cars. We will fight back and we will win, she says, smiling fiercely into the TV cameraman's lens. Meanwhile, guarding Ukraine, many stout elder women are not making soup. They have Googled complete instructions for assembling Molotov cocktails to kill Russian invaders. Their weapons are hidden in straw bales out by the cow. If their city is occupied, their city, the cocktails will be tucked inside shopping bags, under shawls, maybe even inside a bra. Beware. Every old lady is a potential assassin. I am Russia's target number one, says Zelensky. My family is target two. He will not leave for safe ground. Nor will the old woman in a white pom-pom wool cap and black jacket caught on video in the Kherson region of Ukraine the one who walked up to two well-armed Russian soldiers and handed them sunflower seeds for their grave, saying, "You will need these. Go home. Also, get the fuck out of my country." I have one more. Maternity Hospital, Mariupol, March 9th, 2022. The fleeing young woman in a blue surgical mask runs from the rubble, the gaping husk, the maternity hospital. Shields her head with her hand, dark brown nail polish growing out her fingers, her face cut up and bleeding. Her bowed head is covered with the hooded dressing gown she was wearing on the ward before the bomb hit. Heavily pregnant, maybe 18, she runs towards the news camera, wary of the sky. She's a teenage survivor, but war has made her eyes older. And the ear-splitting explosion, the sight of dead and injured, will be etched in her memory. Is anything dark enough, any sound terrifying enough to darken the first cry of a newborn? She will find out. Mariupol, Ukraine. Mariupol, Ukraine. Say it aloud as you push your nice cart through the supermarket. In a basement in that besieged town, a hiding mother and her infant died of dehydration. Her husband off fighting for their country. Today, a Russian bomb targeted Mariupol's Donetsk Regional Drama Theater, a classical stone building where 1,000 were sheltering, many children. Is this the beginning? Our search for a language for World War III? Wilfred Owen was in the trenches, writing what he saw. I know Ukraine from Twitter Spaces, from what the news cameras show me. I am a Quaker, a pacifist. Now I'm talking about war, suddenly normal, like the pandemic became normal. Should NATO intervene in Ukraine to stop the suffering in Mariupol? I struggle to fathom the remarkable immunity, the seeming immortality of sociopathic autocrats. I lost several beloved friends last year, good people lost to deadly, fast-acting diseases. How does that work? Thank you.
Beautiful work, Anne. When I saw those first pictures of people sweeping glass, that was so powerful that they can bomb our country, but we're going to do what's necessary to clean up and rebuild. Very, very strong. And of course, the grandmothers not making soup. Oh my God, beautiful. Your journalistic skills serve you well. Okay, our next participant is the person who started ZoomMuse and one of the main people responsible for us being gathered here today. He joins us via video from the foothills of the Sierra Nevada in California, Emmanuel Williams.
I'm a pre-war child. I was born in 1938. My early years were years of experiencing blitzkrieg and friends at school whose fathers have been killed in war. My early years gave me a deep hatred, loathing of war. because I saw what it did to my country and the world. And that has stayed with me ever since. And I guess I wrote this poem about Ukraine from that feeling. So I'd like to read it now. It's called Ukraine. This has to stop now. This has to be the last time we massacre one another with bullets, shells, and bombs. This has to be the last time one man schemes and bribes and murders his way to a place of such power and evil that he subjugates his own people and seeks to annihilate a neighboring tribe. This has to be the last time millions of human beings, fathers, mothers, grandparents, and children, desperately pack what they can carry and flee the horrors happening around them. Let there be no more of this. Let us relinquish fear and anger, hatred, and the urge to dominate. Let us rise above these dark, destructive energies and open our hearts, all our hearts, to peace. Let us learn to love each other. Let us work and pray to make the world a better place while we still can.
Amen, Emmanuel. Strong work, personal testimony. I'm glad you could be here. Now, from France, by way of Mendocino, California, please welcome Riantee Rand.
Hello, I am happy to hear your voices, very different voices, and all important. Yes, I also was born in France with the war, in 1939, actually, when the war was declared. So my early childhood was spent in times of war. I was separated from my parents. But, you know, when I look back at my childhood, at this time in my childhood, the memories that come back the strongest are just little happy events, you know, tiny little time of happiness. And I feel that when we are fighting the war, the fight is going on within us. And I see people around me now outraged, you know, with hatred, and they're addicted. I felt people around me were addicted to outrage. And so I wrote this poem just a few days ago, actually. So it's very new, and I just want to read it here. It's called The Thought of Love in Form. When the tide of media images threatens to drown everyone around me, when all conversation revolve around distress, fear, and outrage, I crawl into a hole and shrivel. The world out there is dangerous. I cannot trust anything. But through a crack, the sun sends a ray of hope. It looks like an angel. It looks like myself. It looks like you. Choose The reality of love under all circumstances is tell me, nothing ever dies. Energy cannot go anywhere. It can only be changed or be transformed. You have the power to be in a state of love in the midst of all conflicts. The events of this world can never bind you. Live the suffering in innocence and wonder. Don't feel so terrible about the suffering victims, for that victimizes you, victimizes the world. Send love and blessing to those who are fulfilling their destiny, even to the tyrants and perpetrators of hatred. All suffering comes from the interpretation you overlay over events. Don't fight war, but call for peace. Live the great adventure of life, for no day on earth is ordinary. It is your duty to be happy as you embark on the great human odyssey. Not to accept the trite would be sacrilegious. Being depressed is an insult to God. So I give thanks to all I am given to observe, for my reverent seeing matures things and sanctifies them. All creation has called me to create as God does in an extension of love. When I am one in being with Source, I can only share, for my giving is received to be given again and again, and I become a clear channel for the life force. I know the universe. I know God as myself. I am the one in the faces of many. We are all the thought of love in form. Thank you.
Hmm.
Thank you, Riantee. I shared Dora's whimper at the end of that poem. So beautiful. Such a Subud poem, too. I could feel the Subud references and the life force in that. Really beautiful. And in the beginning, talking about outrage, I'm reminded of the bumper sticker I've seen many times and still wonder about, that goes, if you're not outraged, you're not paying attention. I'm glad you gave us an alternative vision of that, which is based in peace and not war. Really beautiful. Okay, she is the co-curator of SICA's ZoomMuse Poems for Peace, and she may very well be at her home in Cowichan Bay, British Columbia. I'm not exactly sure, but I know she's somewhere on Vancouver Island. And please welcome the chair of SICA Canada, Adelia MacWilliam.
Thank you very much. I am indeed in Cowichan Bay, just a different abode. I just want to say, Riantee, thank you for mentioning the war within. I really so appreciated your alternate take on the responses. And also I'm filled with gratitude to everybody who came and read and shared. And I'm in awe, actually, of everything that I've heard thus far. And so thank you. Thank you. This has been really, really powerful. Okay, and I'll try to get through this poem without coughing, so bear with me. It's called Guernica Again and Again. Flames, the color of blood orange, lick at the scorched windows of an apartment building in Kharkiv. Ethereal smoke and steam blur the latticework of the building's frame. So many photographs like this, a pastiche of Guernicas on my computer screen every morning as light spreads behind Salt Spring Island and robins racket above the lavender. I see everything around me in the light of the duende of war right now and feel paralyzed, speechless. Ordinary objects such as spoons and cups suddenly have gravitas, symbols of a normal life. What about the huge theater in Mariupol where the hundreds of people have taken refuge? had taken refuge. They don't know who is buried there now in the rubble, have no way of knowing who the dead might be. They call Odessa the mother and say that anyone who harms the mother will be thrown back in the sea. Will they bomb the bright yellow opera house in Odessa, surrounded by ineffectual sandbags? How will all the fragments be woven back together? But the trauma is mitigated by incredible resilience exhibited by many, including humor. The hackers who hacked all the electric car recharging stations to read "Putin is a dickhead." The Twitter post saying that anyone who seems to have acquired a Russian tank will not be taxed on their recent acquisition. And then the Russians, who are also fighting back. The Russian broadcaster who held up a sign behind the newscaster telling everyone they were being lied to, risking years of jail. Video of Zelensky addressing the Russian soldiers in Russian saying, "We know what you are saying on your phone calls to your mothers and your girlfriends. We know how you feel about this war. Surrender and we will treat you well, not the way you treat us. Not just resilience, but also compassion." Lorca, writing of the Spanish Civil War, said, "Their skulls are leaden, that's why they don't weep. With their patent leather soles, they come down the street. But see how the Ukrainians and many of the Russians walk out to meet them, their souls made of fire."
Beautiful poem, Adelia. Beautiful, big heart you have. Comes through shining, huge. Thank you so much. Thank you for all you do. Some of those images, I see people nodding when you talk about the woman who had the guts to go at the broadcast and hold up the sign. And it's so important not to demonize Russian people. It's not the people of Russia. It's their leader. It's the system that perpetrates lies, and it's the easy access to war, and how easy it is to do that, and how it needs to be made harder, like Emmanuel said. May this be the last time. Our last scheduled reader joins us from New York City. Please welcome David Deffy.
Thank you. I'm deeply honored to be here. Thank you, SICA. Thank you, Adelia, Mr. Andrew, Paul, all of you are brilliant, and I'm deeply touched and deeply honored to be here. Let me say that in 2008, I'm a Georgian American. Russia made attack to Georgia, to conquer Georgia. And I created slogan, "Stop Russia." Yeah, that's me. I opposed Russia's aggression with my protest meetings in the capital of Georgia, Tbilisi. And then pro-Russian government kicked me off from country. I'm in US all these years. So, of course, this is not a question of people, but there is a big but. Kremlin is an empire of madness, empire of evil. In this particular moment, I don't care about Dostoevsky. No way. Russia, it crossed the final line. Russia reached the point of no return, unfortunately. So I'm very sad to say that, but something deadly already has happened in the world. There is no place for Kremlin anymore in 21st century. No way. Russia, as a country, as a state, must be and will be destroyed and punished, because this is evil. This is pure evil. And as a poet, I can feel And we are poets, and we also, of course, sow the future because we know the past. And the future is divine for all of us, because there is no place for evil anymore. I'd like to share with you my work. It's called Divine Ukraine. I wrote this poem on March 1st, 2022. Your eyes are the eyes of gold. Your breath is mother tongue of earth. Your blood is a symphony of fire. Your lips are the truth tellers. No one can take your golden mystery. No one can feel you without admiration. Your heart is garden of kisses. Your ears are pearls of expectation. Your words are constellations, the faces of heroes, encircled by race, drifted on the minds of the world. Their smile, their look, their strength. And its innocence, a tide that tugs at us. In times like this, a sense washes over us, and we gather together in the deadly noise of millennium and this stillness, a stillness that never wavers. All we have become, divine Ukraine, is what your innocence has made of us. The naked homeland of freedom beats right in your heart. This poem, called Breath of Ukraine, I wrote this on March 15, just a couple of days ago. Glory to Ukraine, glory to heroes, and stop Russia. Living the sun behind us and its golden shadows all around the fields, watching the clouds as they pass us by, touching your heartbeat with our breath, we feel our perfect home. Perfect is being free. And sounds of evils as we fleet between the explosions at dawn. Our wishes carve over us like a wave. Our hearts beat through the mysteries of victory. Our blood shines through the nights. That's how heaven sees us in the dark, constellated by the dew of children's spirits. We are not lost in the noise, spinning chaos into order, creating birth from death, and looking for an exit, trying to carry your smile, your divine smile, and that lost heartbeat of ourselves, and this great blessing called freedom. Thank you.
Beautiful, David. I'm grateful you found us, and I'm grateful you were here, and grateful to have heard your work.
Thank you.
We move now to Colorado. Is it Boulder, Colorado, Lawrence Pevek? I think you're in Boulder. All right. So
Boulder, Colorado.
A SICA USA board member, longtime Subud member, postcard poet extraordinaire, Lawrence Pevek.
Thank you. My name is Lawrence Pevek. I live in Boulder, Colorado, and I'm not a poet. I'm a visual artist, and mostly read poetry and appreciate it. And I'm amongst amazing company today. I had the immense good fortune to have grown up in a rural setting. As a child, I was able to run through woods as half naked, swimming holes, playing with neighborhood kids in very natural settings. I didn't actually know anything about cities. The closest town was 10 miles away, and it was, like 5,000 people. I came across this poem by Wendell Berry when it was sung by an a cappella group, popular a cappella group here in Boulder called Sound Circle. And it was arranged by the director named, I can't remember her first name, her last name is Coffey. I'll never forget her last name. And she did this wonderful rendition of this poem. And I've been carrying this poem around with me for 5 years at least, and thought this would be an appropriate time to read it, if I may do that. It's called The Peace of Wild Things.
Oh, yeah, sure.
When despair for the world grows in me, and I wake in the night at the sound in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water, and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things, who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars waiting with their light. For a time, I rest in the grace of the world, and I am free. Wendell Berry said, a quote I found online, "Whether we and our politicians know it or not, nature is party to all our deals and decisions, and she has more votes, a longer memory, and a sterner sense of justice than we do." Thank you.
Beautiful, Lawrence. And I'm just going to read one poem that I alluded to in my poem to start things off. Some of you may have caught the allusion to William Carlos Williams, but we've been reading Spring and All in the workshop that I facilitate with some of the folks here. And Spring and All, 100 years ago, sounds so much like it was written yesterday about what's going on. And so I'm going to read In Chains. When blackguards and murderers, under cover of their offices, accuse the world of those villainies which they themselves invent to torture us, we have no choice but to bend to their designs, buck them, or be trampled while our thoughts gnaw, snap, and bite within us helplessly, unless we learn from that to avoid being as they are, how love will rise out of its ashes if we water it, tie up the slender stem, and keep the image of its lively flower chiseled upon our minds. May you all have the opportunity to keep that image chiseled upon your mind as we deal with this, as we do all in our power to prevent it from ever happening again. I'm optimistic that good will come from this. I pray for this event to end as soon as possible and for good things to start coming immediately. Thank you all for being part of this. I think the energy expressed here is a step in that direction, and I'm grateful to have played a small part. I'm grateful to Andrew Hall and Adelia MacWilliam, to Emmanuel Williams for starting ZoomMuse, and for Latifa Taormina for starting Poems for Peace. We meet every month here on the third Thursday, and you can find more information at SICA-USA.org. So beautiful to see Subud represented. Subud is a worldwide organization. I think we take it for granted. And then when we see people from the UK and Scotland and Australia and California, it's a really beautiful feeling. And when we hear so many different voices, it's a beautiful feeling to be a Subud member and to understand that we're a worldwide organization, and makes me feel a little bit better about the whole situation. So feel free to unmute.
But now, please, anyone who would, Paul.
Paul Edwards in Vancouver.
I hope I can find this really quickly. I had something to read. My father came to me at the beginning of the pandemic in March 2020. I could feel it coming. This huge thing that was unprecedented, and I was afraid. So I went to Ladihan. Sometimes I slip behind a curtain in Ladihan, and actually, if someone wants to talk to me, so. And at that time, I was feeling the heaviness of this coming, this unprecedented thing. And it seems like it's just got hit with another thing before the last thing almost finished. It's wow, so this is very scary too. So I guess I'm just going to have to paraphrase this because I kind of lost it in my stream of all the conversations I've had with those on the other side. But at that time, my father came to me, and this was in March 2020. One sec, see if I can get it. Anyway, he basically said, have not fear. Do not have fear, my son. Here it is. Do not fear, my son. When challenges and obstacles confront you, do not fear. This is part of earth living. It's part of earth living lessons. The harder lessons are valuable too. Face them as best you can, and yes, embrace them. They test your courage. They test your faith, even in the challenge of death. At least death as it is mostly understood in earth living. For that is only an earth concept. Try not to be conquered by fear. For ours is but a short time residing in human physicality, a valuable, but in reality, short time. Engage it, savor it, and celebrate it. You will look back with more gratitude if you try. You are all divine. That is not in question. Love those who are close to you. Most have been part of your journey for a long time. Take joy in it. Even when times are hard, the hard teaches too. The hard will pass too. Stop and remember that. Surrender the current. Stick your toe into the eternal, if just for a while. This can reset your fear, reset your worry, reset your anger to a quiet place of reflection. Renew, renew, renew. Love from the other side, forever, unending. And I said, thank you, Dad, so much. Perfect timing for me now.
Thanks,
Beautiful.
Paul.
Reminded of that.
Yeah.
I'm saying all my dad does is reset the clock for me so I can be on time. But that was,
Well, maybe he won't have to even do that here if, if things go our way. Well, just a joy and a privilege to be with you all today. I think we're going to call it a show. We do have a bunch of people who've expressed interest in the chat to be part of this gathering in the future, to be at least informed about these gatherings. I'm grateful to Adelia MacWilliam for co-curating with me. I'm grateful to Andrew Hall for being the executive producer of all this and making it go. It's such a relief to have someone like him at the helm. I'm grateful for SICA International, SICA USA and Canada, for all the Subwood members who make SICA possible. So grateful to be part of this community. And I just hope for the best going on. The sentiments expressed here today speak it much more clearly and more articulately than I can, but I'm humbled to be in your presence and grateful for your presence. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you,
everyone.
Paul.
Thank you.
It's good.
See you later. See you next time. Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you.